It was a decision that sent shockwaves across the globe. Financial markets tumbled as allied governments, caught completely off guard, demanded an explanation. The world's most stable partnership had, in an instant, been fractured. On October 1, 2025, the United States announced a comprehensive and immediate ban on all goods imported from Canada. With no grace period and no warning, it was an abrupt and total severing of economic ties. The effect was instantaneous and chaotic. At land crossings from Washington to Maine, the arteries of commerce seized. Trucks carrying billions in Canadian lumber, essential for American construction, were halted indefinitely. Car carriers were frozen in place, but the deeper crisis was in the parts they carried. Integrated supply chains, the bedrock of North American auto manufacturing, were shattered overnight. A component made in Ontario for a factory in Michigan was now contraband. Refrigerated trucks, filled with fresh produce, were turned away, their contents left to spoil. On the coasts, ships loaded with Canadian oil were denied entry into American ports, ordered back into international waters. The longest undefended border in the world, for so long a symbol of friendship, had suddenly become a hard economic wall. This wasn't just a barrier to goods, it was a dam holding back the lifeblood of two intertwined economies. For over a century, the U.S. and Canada were more than just neighbors. They were the world's most integrated trading partners. Every single day, over $2 billion in goods and services crossed their shared border. Components for manufacturing would sometimes cross back and forth multiple times before a final product was even finished. It was less a border and more a seamless economic union stitched together by decades of trust. This is why the move was so devastating. This ban was not a small, targeted tariff. It was a complete and total blockade, an act many analysts immediately labeled as economic warfare against a key ally. The impact on American consumers and workers was devastating. Grocery stores saw shelves of bread, produce, and meat go empty. Auto plants in the Midwest announced immediate shutdowns, sending thousands of workers home. Construction projects stalled. Even access to certain pharmaceuticals was threatened. Dealerships couldn't perform basic repairs, leaving customers stranded. To justify this unprecedented measure, the government cited a rarely used national security provision. But what threat could Canada, one of America's closest allies, possibly pose? The details were classified, the reasoning opaque, leaving a stunned nation and a bewildered world asking one simple question: why? The decision to shut the door on Canada, America's closest ally and trading partner, was a move once considered unthinkable. To understand this drastic action, we must first examine the official justification that came directly from the White House, which framed it not as aggression, but as a necessary defense of American interests. At the heart of the announcement was a damning accusation, a long-standing pattern of unfair trade practices. The administration cited years of failed negotiations, claiming Canada systematically violated the principles of free and equitable commerce. The argument zeroed in on key sectors. They pointed to Canada's softwood lumber industry, benefiting from cheap access to public land. They targeted the protected dairy market, which blocks U.S. farmers. And they alleged Canadian aluminum producers gain an edge from subsidized electricity, creating an uneven playing field. This government financial help, known as a subsidy, allows Canadian companies to produce goods at a lower cost. When these cheaper products cross the border, the U.S. government argues American companies simply can't compete. They claim it's a rigged game leading to shrinking profits, reduced investment, and ultimately, the loss of American jobs. This economic argument was paired with a powerful political narrative aimed at America's industrial heartland. The administration pointed to the shuttered factories across the Rust Belt, presenting each closed steel mill or idle auto plant as a direct casualty of this trade imbalance. The solution was a complete ban, an economic wall designed to force companies to bring supply chains home. With this came a powerful promise: the revival of American manufacturing. The vision sold to the public was one of new factories, roaring assembly lines, and thousands of well-paying jobs. Beyond jobs, the White House framed the ban as a matter of national security. They highlighted America's reliance on Canada for critical resources like oil, natural gas, and uranium, arguing that such dependence on any foreign nation posed an unacceptable risk. Ultimately, the decision was fueled by the political climate. Years of rising anti-trade sentiment, especially in crucial swing states, created immense pressure. For voters feeling left behind by globalization, taking a tough line with a major trading partner was seen as delivering on a promise. The first and oldest dispute is over softwood lumber. The U.S. argues low fees on public Canadian timber give an unfair advantage over U.S. private market pricing. Tariffs came and went, but never a total ban. Canada's supply management limits output and shields prices with high import taxes. American producers see opening Canada as a major opportunity. Canada is the largest foreign oil supplier to the U.S., mostly via pipelines. Washington now calls this a dangerous dependency. The strategy: raise U.S. oil and gas production. Complaints extend to copyright, patents, and proposed Canadian digital taxes affecting U.S. tech. The case spans both traditional goods and the modern digital economy. The impact on Canada was immediate and devastating. The Toronto Stock Exchange saw its biggest single-day drop in history. Firms relying on U.S. buyers suddenly had nowhere to sell. It was as if the country's main economic artery was severed overnight. Ottawa called the ban illegal and vowed to fight, but damage mounted. Auto plants dependent on cross-border parts shut down production almost immediately. Thousands were told to stay home. Suppliers halted too. Oil routes cut off, sawmills silent, minerals stranded, prices crashed amid a supply glut. Entire towns built on these sectors faced existential threats. Canada turned to the WTO, sought EU and Asian markets, and weighed costly bailouts. The economic numbers only tell part of the story. The real impact hits ordinary Canadian families. Windsor, Ontario, across from Detroit, has gone quiet. Generations relied on car plants now standing still. Mortgage and grocery costs don't pause. In forestry towns, mills are silent and small businesses empty. Farmers face animals ready for market with nowhere to go, and impossible choices. Communities rally, but cannot replace the missing U.S. demand. Canada's market can absorb the loss. Relief will take time. The policy was framed as a shield to protect American industries. But in our deeply interconnected economy, the reality is far more complex. Instead of fostering prosperity, the ban has sent shockwaves through the very sectors it was meant to help, triggering a cascade of unintended consequences for businesses and consumers across the nation. Take the housing market. American homebuilders have long relied on Canadian softwood lumber. When that supply was severed, prices skyrocketed. Lumber costs doubled in some regions, forcing construction companies to halt projects mid-build. This creates a domino effect, as work dries up for electricians, plumbers, and roofers. For aspiring homeowners, the consequences are direct. A spike in building costs translates to higher home prices, pushing the dream of ownership further out of reach for millions. The auto industry offers another stark example. The North American sector is one highly integrated system, with parts crossing the border multiple times. U.S. plants depend on engines and transmissions from Canada. This just-in-time model is efficient but fragile. When the flow of Canadian components stops, U.S. assembly lines fall silent. Not for a lack of labor, but for a lack of parts. The result is the opposite of the policy's intent. Factory shutdowns that threaten American jobs. This economic pain isn't confined to major industries. It's felt directly in the wallets of everyday Americans. Less competition means higher prices. The effect is immediate at the grocery store, where staples become more expensive, but it doesn't stop there. The price of a new car, now harder to produce, also climbs. This inflation hits lower and middle-income families the hardest. Beyond the checkout line, entire communities are suffering. In border towns from Washington to Maine, local economies are built on the daily flow of Canadian shoppers and tourists. With that relationship frozen, main streets grow quiet. For lease signs appear in shop windows, and hotel lobbies are empty. The ban, meant to strengthen America, is instead hollowing out its own border communities. The ban sends a worrying signal to a system built on global rules. The EU condemns the move as unlawful and destabilizing. Fears rise of a protectionist spiral reminiscent of the 1930s. Brussels backs Ottawa in a WTO challenge. In Asia, some see opportunity, others see risk. China could soak up Canadian oil and lumber, tightening ties. But trust in U.S. reliability erodes. Without big power clout, smaller countries depend on rules now in doubt. Many reconsider over-reliance on the U.S. and explore alternative partners. The crisis could accelerate a move away from the U.S. dollar in trade. Canada explores selling oil to Europe and Asia in euros and other currencies. Expect a stronger CETA and deeper Asia-Pacific pacts. Without the U.S. trade realigns into regional blocs, with less U.S.-centric flow. Companies pivot from pure efficiency to security and reliability. Critical goods shift toward trusted allies, even at higher cost. With the WTO hobbled, unilateral actions risk becoming the norm. A world of power-driven trade and frequent trade wars looms. The ban stands as a watershed moment redefining the global economic order.